And it's lights out, and away we go.
Hello. Welcome back to another episode of F1 Manager 2023-2024 edition with Mercedes F1 team. You guys might be wondering, why are we already racing? Now, OBS corrupted the original intro, and the gameplay itself was recorded, but the audio of me during the gameplay wasn't. So I will be doing a post commentary, and unfortunately y'all won't hear any of my live reactions, but it is what it is. We will follow the race along. Let's try to do our best today. I will pretend that this is a live commentary though. So I believe we qualified 5th and 6th for today's race. Multiple drivers, including Charles Leclerc and George Russell, took grid penalties. Lewis starts 4th, Russell started 14th, I believe. And George will have an impeccable task of trying to climb up the ranks during the whole race. Since the last episode, we have found out that we can use the ERS Battle Assist. We'll be using it for today. Let me know, what do you guys think about that feature? Should we use it or should we not use it? I had never seen it before on hard difficulty for the race itself, but all of a sudden it has appeared. I might have been blind for the past 10 episodes and have not seen it, but I really think something might have just messed up or glitched out due to the fact that I was fiddling around with mods and databases, but I don't know. You guys let me know, should we use it or not? But we will skip along now until the next notable event.
All good at this point. That's it. That's the spin. And there'll be words had after this, I'm sure.
So Lance Stroll goes for another spin. I think this is like the 3rd race in a row in which he spins the car and falls out of the point region. George Russell moves up from 14th to 13th due to Lance Stroll failing to maintain his car on the track. Now, the storyline also is that Valtteri Bottas is in the top 10th. He qualified, I believe, 10th, started the race in 8th. Now moves up into 7th. Alex Albon 6th. Leclerc slowly climbing up now into 9th. Norris on the hards, falling down the grid slowly. Oscar Piastri once again didn't qualify in the top 10, I believe. Now only moving up into 11th. Kevin Magnussen obviously 10th. Both of the Haases are fighting for points in this race. We will try to combat that with George Russell and hopefully pass them. George will be going for the overtake on Nico Hülkenberg in this DRS straight. Will he be able to do it through the inside?
Push and hold, overtake.
He doesn't. Nico does defend, but the overpowering Mercedes car kicks in, or not the car, but the engine kicks in, and we easily overtake Nico. George is now in 12th, chasing Oscar Piastri. Nico did hold us up quite considerably, 3 seconds behind Oscar at this time. George on the mediums, Oscar on the softs. Lewis now attempting to overtake Checo. Checo is on the mediums, so Lewis does overtake him, moves up into 3rd. We are going to be able to battle for the podium today. That was satisfying to watch. Good job, Lewis. It's always nice beating the Red Bulls. Now Norris falling down the grid due to him being on the hards. George is closing in quite considerably at this pace. A lap later, George now has the opportunity to pass Lando, and so he does. Moves up into 11th. We are trying to get away from Checo with Lewis pushing as much as we can, but there is no escaping the grasps of the mighty Red Bull. We will have to battle Checo once again. He will have the tire advantage quite soon.
So here we go, heading into turn 1. It's certainly inviting. and Perez completes the overtake.
So Lewis now dropping off quite quickly from Checo. There is no stopping the Red Bulls, unfortunately. We will try to use the DRS that we can get from Checo, but there is no catching up to Checo anymore. 4 laps later, Checo is gone. Charles Leclerc incoming, so we will be in trouble. Now Alonso is also using Charles to catch up to Lewis. This will be tough. Now George closing in on Kevin Magnussen. A couple of laps later, George has caught up to Kevin. Now Kevin has done a great job at defending against George, but finally George goes past Kevin. Valtteri Bottas and Alex Albon ahead, including Oscar Piastri. Let's not forget about him. Oscar and Alonso are our main targets for today. So let's get past Valtteri and Albon as quickly as we can and start chasing Oscar and Alonso. 1 lap later, George is going for the overtake on Valtteri through the inside. He has the outside now. Will he be able to overpower Valtteri? Yes, he does. He also uses the slipstream off of Alex, gets past Bottas, and now the chase is on for Alex Albon in 8th. We will have DRS. So the DRS flap opens, and George does overtake Alex. Now the chase is on for Oscar. Oscar is only a second in front of George. We will quickly close that gap. I believe Oscar is on the softs. At this point, as you can see, Lewis is at 40% for his soft, so presumably Oscar also has around 40% softs. We do have the advantage. Now Lewis is getting ready to pit. We will pit ahead of schedule, but we will do what we have to do to hopefully beat Alonso and Oscar Piastri. Unfortunately, by the looks of it, Leclerc is closing in, and it will be inevitable that he will pass Lewis. So a lap later, Charles has closed in on Lewis here in this DRS straight. He will be attempting to overtake Lewis. Lewis does defend, but it is not enough. Charles sticks his nose in and gets past Lewis, but we will have DRS in this straight. Yes, we do. So Lewis will have the ability to fight back and still push for a couple of more laps until we have to pit. Now our goal is to just stay in front of Charles for as long as we can, kind of ruin his race and slow him down, and wait for our pits. Now George also has the opportunity to pass Oscar Piastri, and through the outside, he has the inside now. Will he be able to overtake Oscar? And so he does. Okay, we've gotten past Oscar. Charles has gotten past Lewis. You win some, you lose some. So we try to stick alongside of Charles for as long as we could with Lewis. But we pit now. Hopefully we get a good pit. It is 2.8, not too shabby. Now, do we get out in front of Oscar Piastri? No, we drop down into 10th. Here comes Hulkenberg and Norris. We need to get out in front of them. Looks like we won't. We'll be racing on the exit. And the cars collide together. But F1 Manager 2023, it's not in the game. The collision doesn't count. We have some kind of invincibility coming out the pit lane. And we are safe up into 10th. 6 laps later, Charles Leclerc has pitted and passed George and Lewis. George pits now, and he gets a stellar 2.5. So, great pit by the team. George will fall behind Alonso, unfortunately. Hulkenberg also entered the pits. George falls down to 11th, battling Albon. Will Albon pass George? No, he won't. So George comes out in 11th. George once again battling Valtteri Bottas. He has to pass him for the second time in this race. And through the outside, so he does. George gets past Valtteri. Now Kevin Magnussen up ahead. We are still chasing Fernando Alonso. We've finally caught up to Kevin. Kevin did a great job at slowing us down. Lando was also ahead of Magnussen until he pitted. Magnussen is all alone now, and George easily passes him after like 3 laps wasted on Kevin. Alonso is not that far on the mediums, 3 seconds ahead. Will we be able to catch Alonso? Oh, what's that? It's Kevin Magnussen coming through the inside, flying away. He will make our life miserable for once again. We will have to overtake him again for this, what's it, like 4th time this race, battling the Haas cars. They are a headache, definitely, this season for us. Now, Lewis, 13 seconds behind Charles. Oscar Piastri is 7 seconds behind Lewis and battling Alonso. So in this DRS straight, it is time to finally pass Kevin. So, George goes through the inside and no, he doesn't pass Kevin. Kevin has done a great job at defending. We obviously know that both of these stubborn Haas drivers are obviously good drivers and even better defenders. But the Mercedes engine overpowers the Ferrari engine and the Haas manufacturer. So, we are finally in 8th. Hopefully we won't see Kevin Magnussen anymore in this race. Lewis is still losing the gap to Leclerc, and Alonso slowly closing in on Lewis. The time has come. It is time to pay for your sins, Oscar. Look in your rear view mirrors. Here comes George Russell to take your place. In this DRS straight, George will finally do what's right and overtake the nasty McLaren driver named Oscar Piastri. Maybe that's a bit tough to... Oh! What just happened? Looks like Oscar didn't like that, and he made sure to pit George.
Now this was at turn 1. The cars jostling for position. And not just one car involved in that, as you can see.
Luckily, we don't have any damage, but as I was telling you, that nasty driver by the name of Oscar Piastri lost his head and took out his anger on George Russell. So, we move up into 7th without any damage. I believe Oscar might have suffered some kind of front wing damage, but the chase is on. Luckily, none of us got a penalty for that incident, but Fernando Alonso, here we come. 12 laps later, both of our drivers are coming into pit. So, Lewis has a really slow stop. George Russell, though, 2.5. That's a stellar result. So, we undercut Alonso. He is coming out the pits. Lewis passes Fernando. George is a couple of seconds behind Fernando, though. Yeah. But we could have done a better job. If I would have maybe pushed a bit more, we could have came out in front of Alonso with both of our drivers. But now George will have to battle Alonso. George has been battling Alonso for the past 4 laps. Now it is time to finally overtake the old geezer. It's your time to shine, George. Come on, you've got the DRS, you've got the outside. Are you able to overtake him? Looks like no. He is maybe a bit too aggressive, has a bad exit. So with 15 laps to go, Alonso is closing in on Lewis, and Russell has lost the DRS interval to Alonso. So he is a second behind Alonso. We will start to push now with George. If we could overtake Fernando and kind of slow him down so he doesn't interact with Lewis, that would be great. So finally, George is in the position to overtake Alonso. He has the DRS. He does overtake Alonso. Finally, 12 laps to go until we can go home from this dirty Dutch track. Obviously, this is where Max Verstappen was born, so we don't want to be here anymore. But we finally successfully pass Alonso and leave him in the dust, quickly increasing the gap. And so it was smooth sailing until the finish line. Alonso quickly dropped down and Russell was in clean air, calmly driving to the finish. Boring race end, I'd say. Look, if you look at all the cars, there is at least a second gap between each of the cars. But we finished 5th and 6th, a good result for our team today. We will happily bag the points.
So we have taken the flag. So it's P5, Lewis. Well done, mate, for sticking at it.
Let's keep pushing. Well done, guys.
So that's checkered flag. That'll be P6. Good race.
Ah, that is so difficult. Good job, guys.
So, with the dust settled, I will have to apologize to Oscar, Piastri and Max for my comments during the race. But these are the results for today. Max in first, Carlos second, Sergio third, Charles fourth, made up, he started 10th and finished 4th. Lewis and George 5th and 6th, Fernando 7th, Valtteri Bottas 8th, Kevin Magnussen 9th, and Lando Norris 10th. The McLaren keep screwing the pooch, only getting 1 point here in the Dutch countryside. Actually, no, Zandvoort is quite a bit of a nice city next to the sea. But yeah, so good race result by us. Mainly our competitors barely scored any points. Obviously, Lance Stroll down in 13th, Oscar Piastri in 11th, so no points for them. Lando only gets 1 point. So, W Riz weekend for us. Sorry for using that kind of foul language, but that's how I can describe this weekend. Now, Lewis continues to increase the gap to Fernando in the Drivers' Championship. George Russell comfortably gets 2 extra points on Fernando, and Lando only gets 1 point from today, as I said, barely increasing the gap from him to Lance, although I don't think Lance is really a concern for him. Max, though, basically has now won the championship by the looks of it. It was never doubted that he will not this season, but it is what it is. Valtteri moves up by 5 positions after today. Kevin Magnussen gets an extra 2 points, getting past Liam Lawson and Nico Hülkenberg. Constructor Championship wise, we have a nice lead from Aston Martin by 12 points. Sauber trying to leave the bottom of the Shadow Realm in F1, but still tied with Williams. Has now moved up into 7th, closing the gap to Racing Bulls. So let's now move on to the DHL fastest pit stop competition, and we finally finish first with that George Russell 2.5 pit stop. That's a great job, team. I will definitely throw a pizza party for them. This is exactly what we are trying to achieve this season. We have now passed Mercedes, quickly closing in on Aston Martin. Hopefully we'll be able to pass them maybe next race. I would definitely want to at least reach the 5th position this season, and we know it's achievable. George Russell had 2.5 second pit stops. Lewis screwed the pooch, or at least for the team screwed the pooch for Lewis with 1 4-second pit stop and the other 2.8. So the time has come for the moment we've all been waiting for. It is time to sign the replacement for Lewis Hamilton. Now, unfortunately, the whole signing process was corrupted. I did it before the race, but you guys will receive it now. So, first of all, there were 2 polls, one for the Fernando Alonso contract extension. 4 votes for that, 75% said yes. So, Fernando got his real life contract extension. So, he now is signed to 2 more years, and then we can move on to the actual vote for the replacement for Lewis Hamilton. In the 5th place with 0 votes, it is Fernando Alonso. I'm quite surprised that completely nobody voted for him. He was my personal favorite as the replacement for Lewis. His contract was about to expire at the end of the season, which turned out that actually it wasn't. Aston Martin gave him an extension. He is one of the best drivers of all time. He has also given us some troubles this season. And taking away one of the best drivers from our rivals seemed to be an interesting idea, and one which I wanted to entertain. But you guys were against it, so we will not sign Fernando, as well as the fact that Fernando didn't want to go anywhere himself, sticking with Aston Martin for the next 2 years. In the 3rd place, it was Lando Norris with 13% of the votes. I really thought he was the favorite. I was mentally prepared to sign him, but turns out it wasn't the case. In the 2nd position, it was Max Verstappen with 20%. He was my 2nd favorite. I really wanted to replace Lewis with an even better driver, and Max currently seems to be the better driver. Plus, it would have been really weird seeing him in the Mercedes uniform and car. It would have been interesting to see how he'd perform in a worse car than the Red Bull, and also to see the effect of the whole driver lineup in F1 changing due to the fact that Red Bull doesn't have their number 1 driver. For example, Carlos maybe would have went to Red Bull together to team up with Sergio Perez. Now, the winner of the poll and the driver we signed, it is none other than Carlos Sainz. So, it is a 1-for-1 swap between Ferrari and Mercedes. Lewis goes to Ferrari, Sainz comes to Mercedes. We signed him to a 2-year deal. Now it says contract length 1 year. If he is only signed for 1 year, that is my mistake. But we signed him for a bit of a more expensive deal than George Russell, unfortunately. We gave him a 10 million bonus on top of his current salary. Carlos is coming to Mercedes. Thank you to everybody who voted. There was also 27% of you guys who voted for other. But only, unfortunately, 2 comments, one of them being for Theo Pourchaire and the other for Logan Sargent. I will quickly read out Tino's comment about Theo Pourchaire. He says, "What about Theo Pourchaire? In the 2nd race of his rookie season in my save, he got his first podium and he helped our team to achieve our first one too." Now, with Theo, I wasn't quite sure. I really wanted to sign an experienced driver due to the fact that we need to actually compete with Ferrari and Red Bull. And I know for a fact they aren't signing any of the rookie drivers next season. So it wasn't really an option for me. I wanted to sign Carlos or at least Fernando. But we could start to consider Theo as our driver for whenever Carlos or George leaves, because I presume Theo will get a chance to drive for Sauber pretty soon after, or maybe next season, maybe after next season. So there will be definitely a chance for him to prove himself, and after he proves himself in F1, we can start to consider him. Now, signing him right now maybe would have been an interesting idea. Maybe sign him to a long-term deal, sign him for cheap, so whenever he does grow into an, let's say, 85 overall driver, he is signed for like a 2 million deal, which is something like Nico Hulkenberg earns 2 million per year. So could have been interesting. Definitely an idea, and we can consider him maybe further down the line. There will be another vote for our reserve driver for next season, replacing Mick. Mick has now grown into an 80 overall, and I want to let him go. Maybe try so he can prove himself in a different team. Frederick Vesti is the driver I am looking to sign to replace Mick, but we could also hold a vote for that. Let me know. There is also Robert Schwartzman out there. Maybe Felipe Drugovich is let go by Aston Martin. Maybe we can go and sign Theo Pourchaire, maybe someone from F2. I am not sure. Kimi Antonelli has now turned 18, so we can kind of consider him, but I would like him to develop in F2 for 1 more year at least. But thank you to everybody who voted. Next episode we'll be racing in Monza. We are quite quickly nearing the end of the season. So, thank you guys for watching this episode. I really appreciate your support. Thank you to everybody who voted in the polls and helped me decide who to replace Lewis with. Hopefully you guys didn't also mind my post commentary. I tried to do my best. But thank you for watching the video, and I will see you guys next time. Bye bye.